We are far from transitioning to a country that's run on renewable energy. I don't think anybody's really going to argue with me, except for probably Biden. No matter how much it's advocated, the infrastructure just is not in place for it to be a viable source of energy for Americans at this moment. It's not just with the vehicles that we drive, but it's also important to note that diesel fuel is essential for agriculture and many machines that they use, for freight, and even the movement of our goods, to natural gas for the electricity generation that powers up our many different industries, to eventually our homes. Now, it's very, very unsettling to think that our supplies are nowhere near where we need them to be in order to support the shift in demand as the weather continues to become more and more intense. And when people realize that without diesel, our country doesn't move, that is when we start to accept the fact that more trouble is brewing for all of us. You can argue global warming, climate change, and all that. I get it. It's not just the fuel that keeps us going, but the food as well. There's no time to lose. This should be the sign for you to prepare for what is coming down the pipeline. Now, before I continue, please drop a like for the video and also subscribe for your daily dose of the truth. Really appreciate your support. Now, we are seeing some relief when it comes to gas prices as of late. Compared to 2021, there's at least a 10 to 20 cents difference with gas, while diesel is still more than $1 above the average for the same year. While we've been seeing price declines in recent weeks, it may not last very long. Like all good things, this plunge may now be coming to an end. Gas prices are expected to make a huge comeback, with the spike possibly peaking mid-2023. With supplies expected to dwindle and demand sharpening, the energy crisis may just be at its genesis. Opportunities to prepare for the onset of winter are running out, and it is very apparent that this will continue to alter prices all around us. About 2/3 of the US population, or around 200 million people, are now being directly affected by huge winter storms. The storms have been so strong that it's even extended into Mexico and Canada, causing huge disruptions for travel, as well as countless flights being canceled. Millions of others are suffering as power outages continue to spread.
Tonight, a blast of cold air has pushed temperatures to dangerous lows. In Chicago, 50-mile-per-hour winds at a wind chill of -40 is even making the usual road clearing measures useless. The storm has been deadly. At least 12 people have been killed. One driver in Missouri slid off the road into a lake.
The water's froze over, so that poses a lot of challenges.
Temperatures in at least 15 states are in negative territory. Denver experienced its second coldest day on record. Today was the East Coast turn to take the punch. A driving ban in Buffalo and coastal flooding from Massachusetts to New York City had residents wading in knee-deep water.
I'm not testing fake guys, I just turned around, they're going the other way.
Even Florida, Georgia, and Texas are expecting overnight temperatures near zero. In Tennessee, many areas are experiencing rolling blackouts.
Starting around 10, we had like blackout, boop, boop, like just a second, took like that. And I was like, oh no. And then 10 minutes later, boop, boom, again.
Renewing Texans' fears of a repeat of the massive power grid failure less than 2 years ago.
The supplies that some households have, they're not holding up. But according to some, they are fearing that running their car in this weather may damage it to an extent that it doesn't work for the rest of the year, keeping more people stuck in their homes. If you felt as though the energy crisis is bad now, imagine what the next winter will bring us. Policymakers are already struggling as it is. But once we face the winter of 2023 heading into 2024, that's where the real crisis will start. The problem is simple. A shortage on fuel will in turn create a shortage of electricity. This will continue to increase prices and will become an immovable burden for consumers across the globe. The American public may face a shock as this reality is creeping on our shores. It also doesn't help that the domestic gas producers are saying that they're struggling to meet the demand that we have now. And it may not be long until announcements and campaigns that are meant to discourage citizens to use less energy are sent out into the airwaves. With more energy expected to be used through the winter, producers fear that they may not be able to keep up with the demand. This will lead to more shortages and possibly power outages that will leave households out in the cold. Now, there will always be naysayers who will say that we're headed in the right direction, but there will be others who will slowly realize that the truth has always been right in front of our eyes. We were just too distracted to see what it is. Because if you study how fast things have changed in the last 2 years, you would realize that things are now getting out of hand. And it's not just gas prices prices that we should be concerned about. But as the cold persists, we should at least stock up on necessities to keep ourselves warm during the season. It's not too late to stay ahead of the people who wait until the very last minute to buy their needs. This is when panic buying settles in, and also where a lack of supply usually happens. It's also the same people who are left with nothing on the shelves as they waited until the weather became worse, or maybe even didn't even heed the call of an upcoming natural disaster. Making this mistake ensures that you will be scrambling for your needs at the worst possible time. The most basic necessity would be food, although at today's prices, it's become a daunting challenge for us to have the same quality of food while maintaining a tight budget. Some households have had to switch up their meals and even cut back on some purchases. Christopher Harrington, an economics professor, he said this, quote, "Some of it is also rising costs from the producer side. They're seeing higher costs on their side and passing some of that along to consumers. Some of it continues to be supply chain disruptions and just not being able to get the raw ingredients." End quote. Even with inflation affecting the entire globe, none has seen quite an increase like the United States. In fact, on a year-over-year comparison, eggs have shot up by more than 40%. Meat has seen an increase of almost 20%. Salads and fruits up by 17%, and cereals and breakfast staples by almost 18%. If only our stock market portfolios had the same type of performance. Now, it's easy to say that we've been hit with the brunt of these increases, but we haven't seen pain as much as those who live on fixed income, mainly the elderly who live off of Social Security, SSI, SSDI, beneficiaries of SNAP and EBT benefits. They also reported that they're having more difficulty keeping up. As these people have a fixed cash flow, any increase to their needs means that they will have to cut back or completely stop buying particular items. Inflation has become so ingrained in our economy that most U.S. households are now spending an extra $433 a month, while the rising prices are now next to impossible to adapt to. Some industry experts are saying that 2023 may be a much tougher foe to take on, especially with the expectation of shortages to affect multiple industries. Billionaire owner and CEO of New York City supermarket chains Gristetti's John Castellamidis, he urged Americans to buy their food now as he sees inflation only getting much worse, and the companies like PepsiCo and Kraft Heinz, they will continue to pass the pain of higher production costs onto consumers. Now, he's also discussed price increases to go beyond the single digits and that this trend will pour over into 2023 with a vengeance. And he will be right, as food inflation will flood over into 2023, with sticker shock expected to become part of the norm and not a one-time thing for consumers. The fragile supply chain that food is on will contribute to this immensely, and it will be wise to plan our meals, our days, our weeks, even months ahead, so long as we understand the proper methods of preparation. Now, while this is one half of what we need to be doing, we must remain optimistic that food production, it goes back to normal levels, and hope that life can eventually provide us with a semblance of peace, both with our finances and our health. Now, in order to be prepared for the challenges that lay ahead, we have to consider the need to improve our cash flow. We can't rely on credit cards, Visa, MasterCard, American Express to pay for everything forever. It just won't work. And this is why I'm extending my know-how onto you. If you're ready to create multiple streams of income, maybe even passive income through real estate, stock market investing, or maybe you'd like to become an entrepreneur and start with a side hustle, or maybe even creating a small business, feel free to join our Patreon family community. There is a link in the description down below. There you'll be among like-minded individuals who are looking to gain some semblance of financial freedom once again. But before I go, please kindly hit the like button. I really appreciate that. It helps get the truth out to more people. Also, subscribe to the channel for your daily dose of the truth. Appreciate you watching. I'll see you on the next one.